Hi everyone, it's Nala. Now, you can probably already tell from the title, but we finally got around to making our 100 subscriber video. Now, the Retro Reject wanted me to do the shout out for this video, because it mainly has to do with me. And this video idea was suggested by Litty Commitee, who wanted to see a love story with Nala, so thank you so much, Litty. But I also did want to say that for all the other people who commented with video ideas, don't worry, because the Retro Reject was actually so impressed with the other video ideas that he is probably going to do a couple more. But with that being said, let's head on into the video.
You guys are back in the old school. Hey guys, I'm the Retro Reject, and as Nala already explained, for my 100 subscriber special video, I decided to go with an idea that was just simply called Love Story with Nala. But believe me, this was a hard decision to make. Because out of the 6 of you who commented with video ideas, they were just so creative in my own opinion that I am probably going to make 1 or 2 of those video ideas that were suggested just because they were so good. And I was genuinely surprised that Titanosaurus was just a general favorite character on my YouTube channel. But even with the video idea I picked, there were so many other ideas that were coming into my head of how I would make this video. In fact, there were 3. The first one was just explaining the reasons why I think I had a crush on Nala when I was younger, and then also giving the explanations of why I consider her my favorite Disney character of all time now. The second idea was that I had to give the explanation and story of how, from when I first met Nala to now, and just the whole love story that transpired within the YouTube channel. And the third idea was mash up footage of me and Nala and just make a music video to the song that was made by Taylor Swift called Love Story. But I think it's best for my 100 subscriber video that I owe you guys the explanation of why I had a crush on Nala when I was younger, the whole love story that transpired between us, and just giving the reasons of why now I just consider her my favorite Disney character of all time. Because I think the general consensus about the relationship between me and Nala is, to put it lightly, weird. So, as you can expect, this video is going to be fairly similar to my anime synopsis video, where I had to give the explanations of why I had a crush on certain anime characters when I was younger. But except this time, it's going to be with my top crush from when I was younger. But without any further ado, let's get on into it! Now, the first reason doesn't specifically deal with Nala, but it's the fact that I consider lions my favorite animal. Now, I know that sounds generic, but they're just such fascinating animals to me, because they're the only types of big cats who live within social groups when compared to other animals and big cats like tigers, leopards, jaguars, who are just solitary hunters. And it's specifically the lionesses who interest me, because they're the ones who do most of the work for the pride when compared to the males. Because they're the ones doing all the hunting, they work as a team together, and they take care of their own young. And by design, they're such beautiful yet deadly creatures. So then when you translate that real-life beauty of an animal into cartoon form, it creates something that I cannot resist. The second reason actually has to deal with Nala, but it's the reason that a lot of other people, not just me, like to point out is the reason why they had a crush on Nala was this scene. And honestly, yeah, who could say no to that face? But I think I was one of the smarter kids back then because I knew she was smiling at Simba, not me. But there is one thing about her face I do want to point out, and that's her eyebrows. And it's not just Nala, but every other lion within Lion King has eyebrows. And if you think about it, it's what makes them appear more human, because eyebrows are one of the most expressive parts on a human being. It can clue into how somebody's feeling, like if they're surprised, if they're a little bit confused, or even just flat out happy. I mean, I think that's one of the subtle details so many people felt like they had a crush on Nala, because she could actually show emotion. Which brings us to why many people, including I, believe that the live-action Lion King failed. Because real-life lions still show expression through the subtle little difference in face changes they have. And you have to fill in the blank yourself, because since they don't talk, through the little change they have in their face, their body posture, or even just from what they're staring at. But instead, with the live-action Lion King, with the very minor lip movement they make, their face does not match from what the emotion they're trying to show. Now, these next couple of reasons actually dive into Nala's personality, of what I actually like of her as a character. And just how she acts on a normal basis is a very kind and very sweet, caring lioness. Yes, just from the flow and the tone of her voice, it's just someone who's very sweet and actually cares about everybody else within the Pride Lands. But that sweetness can actually turn into badassery, because considering that she is the queen of Pride Rock, she has to go and help the other lionesses and be the leader of the hunting team. And in Lion King 1, she did help Simba and the other lionesses fight the other hyenas at Pride Rock. And then in Lion King 2, she got into a one-on-one fight with Botani, and the most fiercest lioness within the Outlands, and apparently won that battle. Meanwhile, in Lion Guard, I mean, she's fine. I really have no complaints about it. I mean, she doesn't have a lot of screen time, and there's like only a couple of episodes that are devoted mainly to her, but it's mainly just around Kion and his group. But she does sort of lose her badassery, because in one scene she has to fight against 5 other hyenas, but she's about to lose, which resorts to Kion having to come and save her. But it sort of makes sense, because in real life, if one lioness had to fight against 5 other hyenas, most likely the 5 other hyenas would win. And then the case with the crocodiles, that one actually makes sense, because crocodiles are a lot stronger animals that have the capability of taking down a lioness, and their main form of attack actually deals with ambushing from the water. Now, this next part has to deal with Nala's skills as a mother. Now, her parenting method for raising both Kiara and Kion was a pretty good one, because her whole system mainly relies on trust. She does love both her children very dearly, but she does let them go off and do their own thing. Now, yes, she does worry about them, but she believes that they're going to be perfectly fine out on their own. They're not going to get into trouble. Now, some of you might view that as lazy, but if you understood how Nala's childhood was, her parenting method begins to make a lot more sense. Nala had to live a life where she thought her best friend was dead, the leader of their pride was dead, and then this new guy comes in with a whole bunch of hyenas who are Lion's mortal enemies, and where she has to constantly work hard to maintain the pride, and also be on guard 24/7 so she doesn't get eaten by a hyena. So it makes sense that Nala doesn't want her own children to live a life where they're basically being constantly watched by somebody to make sure they're okay, instead putting her trust in her children, knowing that they're not going to get into trouble, or when they're already basically living a life where everything is fine. Now, in terms of her interactions with her children, she does both love Kiara and Kion, but I think she loves Kion a bit more, because in Lion King 2 and Lion Guard, you barely see her interact with Kiara. Meanwhile, in Lion Guard, any scene that Kion and Nala share together, it's pretty obvious that Kion is a mama's boy. Another thing that speaks to her being a great mother is that with real-life lions, 80% of cubs die before they reach the age of 2. And she was able to raise 2 of her children over that age.
Oh, don't mind me. I just wanted to say that technically Nala has 3 children, and I should know because I am one of them. But, just promise me you won't tell the Retro Reject that because, he doesn't need to know yet.
So, before we move on to the last couple of reasons of why I had a crush on Nala, and the reasons why I consider her my favorite Disney character of all time, I might as well tell you the whole story of what transpired of the relationship between us. Okay, so long ago, way back in the day when I was about like 5 or 6 years old, that's when I was first introduced to Nala when watching The Lion King. And then just after watching the movie over and over and over again, I started developing my crush for her. And eventually I just wanted to meet her in person. And then lo and behold, an imagination box showed up, so that I hopped in that and got transported to the Pride Lands. And I'm pretty sure most of you already understand how the imagination box works, but I will remind you. So basically how it works is I can transport myself to any universe and stay there for as long as I want, and then whenever I want to go back to the real world, I just hop back in it, and I get transported roughly about the same time as I left, so it feels like I never left the real world in the first place. But meanwhile, back in the Pride Lands, this was around the time when Scar took over the Pride Rock, and Simba was off living the Hakuna Matata life. So Nala was obviously at basically her lowest point, and through the magic of the imagination box, I was transformed into a lion cub. And so I finally met Nala, and we basically just kind of hung out together, and I didn't want to tell her like right away that I had a crush on her, because, I mean, we just met. It would seem pretty awkward if I told her right away. So we just always hung out together and for a long while, and then I would just hop back in the imagination box and head back home for a while. So as the years went by, my feelings for Nala kind of started to subside from the crush phase, because I started to realize that, okay, I cannot fall in love with an animal. Well, but her feelings for me began to grow stronger, because I was basically the only other cub within the Pride Lands and the only other male cub she knew. So she started having feelings for me, but she didn't tell me yet. And then I kind of also started not seeing her as much as I used to and take longer periods within the real world rather than hanging out in the Pride Lands for very long. Until eventually I stopped seeing her altogether as we both reached the like young teenage phase, because that was around the time when I met Titanosaurus and Mechagodzilla within the real world, so I really had no point of going back to the Pride Lands, because now I had I had these guys within the real world. But back in the Pride Lands, she was wondering where I went off to, and then that's when she realized that she can't keep hiding away her problems, knowing that the Pride Lands is basically going so far downhill. She needs to go find somebody who can help her. So that's when the whole thing of Lion King happens, where she runs off, finds Simba, brings him back, and then they're victorious against Scar. And then that's when the recovery period starts. But lo and behold, Mechagodzilla and Titanosaurus find the imagination box. They go to the Lion King universe, find Geronimon, and then they find Nala, in which she sees the imagination box, and then as Titanosaurus and Mechagodzilla go back in it, she hitches a ride on it back to the real world. And that's where we are now, where I'm basically moved on from Nala, but she still has feelings for me and Simba. Now, this final part of Nala's personality is what I believe is the biggest reason why I love her so much, and that is her attitude of not wanting to give up on anyone or anything. She just has such a kind soul that wants to bring out the best of everything. I mean, whether it be with her own pride, not wanting to see it crash and burn, or with her own children, wanting them to live happy and successful lives and just having faith in themselves. But this trait is most obvious with her interactions with her mate, Simba. Specifically in the scene that happens after the song Can You Feel the Love Tonight, where Simba and Nala are both having a one-on-one conversation with each other, and Nala's just trying to figure out why Simba didn't return to Pride Rock and make him understand that he needs to accept his responsibility and return. But ultimately, Simba's refusing because of the things that he's been torn down by the things that happened in his past, and instead wanting to choose a life where he's basically half of what he can truly be. And the argument just keeps escalating between the both of them until eventually Simba says to forget it and leaves Nala behind. Now, Nala could have just done the easy thing and accepted that Simba wasn't going to listen to her and just leave. But instead, she chose to stay behind and went out to look for him, even going so far to go find Timon and Pumbaa to wonder if they have seen Simba. But then when she finds out from Rafiki that Simba went back to Pride Rock, she then has to explain to Timon and Pumbaa from the scene from Lion King 1.5 the whole reason why Simba went back in the first place and the whole story that's transpired thus far. But her trait of not wanting to give up really shines through this one line.
Oh, don't you get it? Simba needs us.
She wants to be there for somebody and help them when they need it the most. And even if they won't accept it, she's not going to just say that they're a lost cause or leave them behind. She's going to still stand by them and make them become something greater than what they originally were. And that is why I love her so much. Which brings me to why I hate the live-action Nala so much. She does not have the same traits as cartoon Nala. Literally, the only thing she cares about within that movie is her own pride. Right, she doesn't care about the feelings of anybody else. She didn't even say sorry to Pumbaa after she tried to hunt him down. I mean, yeah, sure, the cartoon Nala didn't say sorry either, but she was still happy to become friends with Pumbaa. But in the live-action one, Nala doesn't care about anybody else. And in the whole argument scene between Simba and Nala, when Simba says no to wanting to go back to Pride Rock, she flat out gives up on him and leaves. And then when Simba does decide to go return to Pride Rock, she's already halfway there at that point. I have spent 14 years loving this lioness, and then all that goes up in smoke with your terrible performance because you ruined the name and character of Nala!
Thirsty?
Ah! Okay, I'm fine. I'm cool. I just needed to get that out of my system. So yeah, those are all my reasons of why I love Nala so much as not only a character, but as somebody who was my first cartoon crush. But this video did explain a lot, and as well as hopefully they made Nala and I's interactions on this YouTube channel not awkward anymore. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, whatever the heck you want to do, and maybe hit that little bell icon to get notified when the old school is back in session. But with that being said, the old school is out!